Hello, I'm Vincent Squire.
Hello, I'm Eric Dawson, and I want to invite you to What You Gotta Say.
What You Gotta Say is a live talk show where you can keep it real.
You can keep it real with experts in politics, money, travel,
religion, sports, food,
pop culture, current trends, fashion, and a whole lot more.
What You Gotta Say allows you to zoom in live and talk about what affects the Black community
from a Black perspective. Most of all, What You Gotta Say includes voices that really matter. Yours. Like us on Facebook.
Subscribe to What You Gotta Say on YouTube
to get notification of the show's airtime. We're waiting to hear
what you gotta say.
What you gotta say.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Vincent Squire, the host of What You Gotta Say. Now, this isn't our normal time. However, we're going to make everybody viewing us early worth your while. But let me start some introductions. Hailing from North Jersey, the scourge of every local politician between Trenton and New York City. He is also the host of the Eric Dawson Show. Eric Dawson, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Vincent. A little chilly today. I thought we had spring, but it feels more like early fall.
Well, there's a support group for that. It's called All of Us. Now, one thing that we've noticed through the COVID experience is that there was a great deal of media in which we found ourselves lacking. And most of all, we were lacking in media that includes us. With us today, our special guest, good friend. I can tell you a lot about her, which would embarrass her, but I'm not going to do that because I wanted to come back on the show again. But she is right now the only African-American woman anchoring a primetime media from ABC News, our very own Linsey Davis. How are you?
How are you, Mr. Squire? Good to see you.
Oh, Linsey, come on, we know each other. You can call me that guy like you do in church.
God.
Okay, Linsey, first, congratulations on two things. One, your Emmy, which I'm very proud of and very upset that I never got to see it. And second, congratulations on taking that anchor position.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel honored to have been given a seat at the table, if you will, and I really consider it a blessing, and I'm grateful.
Well, it's a blessing to see people at the seat of the table that resemble us. It gives us a level of understanding or easier to digest and believe that what is coming from those sources are true and they do relate to us. So it's wonderful that you do that. And I cannot tell you how proud everybody of Bethel AME Morristown, who a lot of them have signed on to see the show, are of you.
Oh, well, thank you. And, you know, that continues to be my home church, even though my parents have now moved away from Morristown. But that's one advantage now with everyone Zooming and being all virtual is that, you know, they still get to regularly be a part of Bethel. And I consider it to continue to be my church family.
Oh, so much of your church family. I remember recording you preaching Mother's Day.
Yes, that's right. A few years back. That's right. My first and only.
Yes. So let's dive right into it. You have written a series of books.
That's right. My third book just came out, Stay This Way Forever. First book was called The World is Awake, a celebration of everyday blessings. Second book, One Big Heart, a celebration of being more alike than different. Really was inspired by my son. When he was an infant and we were reading books to him, I was thinking, you know, I could do this. And over time, when I was really, it had to be so intentional and deliberate to find books with Black and brown characters, I felt I need to do this. And so I did, and really had put on my reporter hat and kind of researched a little bit and found, you know, there was a study right around 2018 out of the University of Wisconsin that found that 27% of children's books, the main characters were animals. And so that means that the children are more likely to see animals featured in their books than they are children of color. And so I figured rather than, you know, complain about the problem, let me be part of the solution. And, you know, each time my son would kind of give me an idea, not that he was saying, oh, you should do this for a book, but something that he would say or ask or do would inspire me. And I'd say, that's what I'm going to write my book about. And so What was originally intended just to be a one-off now has in fact become a series, and I do think that it's basically rooted in love. I mean, the first book is really to know that God loves you. The second book is love each other, right? And embrace our differences and our diversity. And this one is really know that you're loved by your parents.
Oh God. Well, look, to keep my collection, I am going to need another autographed copy. So, so love your parents. In today's society, we see so less of that. Do you think it's because of the media influence?
We
Or
see
is it
less of what was the, yeah, you cut out for a second. You
that
said,
less of that parental love?
mm. You know, I think it's still there. You know, I think that maybe it's just not the focus of a lot of, you know, the news media, and potentially you see it a little bit more in social media, perhaps. You know, I guess if you look and you're intentional for certain things, you can find it. And so I guess I try and focus on believing that, you know, it's still. Are you guys, am I still with you?
You're still with us.
Okay, good. Believing that it's still there. But look, I hope that when parents are reading the books to their children, that there's going to be this something that resonates in the children, that there's going to be this power in hearing the parents recite these words about how cherished and adored and loved they are. And the idea of stay this way forever is really, I think all parents will relate to. When you just kind of want to push the pause button, you want to freeze so many of these aspects of childhood that you know are fleeting, that you know your child is going to grow up and put away childish things, right? And so you really want to kind of savor some of these moments. And these were directly written, you know, from my own script of watching my son. It was just like kind of torn from the pages of my own reality. I want to put these into words and into the book. But I do think that there are aspects of childhood, this playground of childhood, that you can take into adulthood. And I hope my son will, you know, the idea of his curiosity and his creativity and the joy. And, you know, sometimes at night he'll say, you know, I just can't wait for tomorrow. It's going to be the best day ever. And I hope he takes that with him into adulthood. You know, the idea that tomorrow's exciting, that it's pregnant with possibility, and that is one hope that I have for him among many.
Did you just have those moments with him? Because I mean, I see him in church and everything, and I look at him in his interaction, and I'm always like, "Oh, you get to have a young man who's such a sweet guy."
Oh, thank you. Yes, you know, and those are the things that I hope that he'll grow up and still be a sweet guy. You know, that again, something I don't want him to leave behind because he's a child. You know, there are so many things that the pitter patter of his feet, when he jumps into bed with us in the morning on the weekends, or, you know, the idea that he just skips, you know, it's something at some point we all stop skipping for some reason, you know, but it's so, when I see him skipping, it just makes my heart skip really and flutter, because there is just this joy, so much so that you just kind of have this bounce in your step. And I love that. And I just savor so many aspects of each stage really of childhood. And so that's what, you know, compelled me to write this last book.
Well, we're going to forego our commercials because we're running a real tight schedule, and Linsey has another appointment and engagement. So let's get right into it. Let me introduce the three wise ones, our normal panel of, because on this show, I like to talk to people who are a heck of a lot smarter than me. And some have been commenting that that bar is already low for me anyway. So first, she is the installation chaplain of the National Guard Bureau. She's also an author. She has written a few books herself. She is working on her second doctorate in traumatology. And she is also a mother and a grandmother. Everybody, let's welcome Dr. A. Shellerine Lang. Okay, sorry, we've got to unmute Dr. Lang, and she's going to say hello, but I want to keep it moving. Next, he is the imam of the Islamic Center of Ewing. He's also president of the Islamic Council of Trenton. He is on the executive board of in Mercer Interfaith. He is also the retired director of energy service. Say hello to Imam Karib Bashir.
Hello, everyone. May God's peace be upon you. That's the director of Fire and Emergency Services. Linsey,
yeah.
congratulations on your anchor spot.
And last but not least, he hails in Pennsylvania. He is known as the most sexiest sweater vest man that they have ever seen. Let's say hello
Makes perfect sense.
Rabbi
Right?
Seth Frisch.
Shalom to everyone.
All right, I know you guys have been waiting to get it, so go ahead. Let's start.
You do. So I have a question for you, Linsey. So you see behind me, it says be a lady and a legend. And so I'm just interested to hear, how do you hold on to yourself with all that you do? You're the first woman to do so many things, and you're a trailblazer, but how do you hold on to yourself with all the hats that you wear, being a mother and an author and an anchor and all that kind of stuff?
Sure. God's grace and mercy, really. Someone has said early on in my life, do what you can and let God do the rest. And so I would feel that adequately or accurately sums up kind of the existence that I have. And it's exciting, it's full, it's very busy. I'm exhausted often, but feel very fulfilled and satisfied.
Well, I just want you to know my granddaughters love your book. They love all the colors. And I'm just fascinated. I write books really about empowerment for women. So the latest book I have is Spiritual Alpha Female. And so I wanted to get into writing children's books. So did you think about writing books for adults, or are you just going to stick with the children?
I think I'm going to stick with children. I mean, maybe as my son grows a little older, maybe I'll start to write, for, YA. I don't know. But for the most part, I really never had a plan that I was going to even write books at all. So it's just kind of comes with what I feel inspired by the moment at the time. At this particular time, my muse is kind of my son. And so at this point, I think I'm going to just stick with children's books.
Okay.
Well, I did read the book. It was very good. I really enjoyed it. And we're going to be reading it to our grandchildren. I think it was very, very positive. So again, congratulations.
Thank you.
I did have one question, and I know Vincent might redirect me, but just even in my own life, I know that I've been blessed in terms of being the first in many ways in terms of my career or whatever. And unfortunately, as an African American, sometimes we have to be concerned that we're not just representing ourselves, that we're representing our people as well. Do you feel that type of environment or pressure, if you will,
Sure.
In terms of your profession?
Yes, 100%. There is a weight to it. Recently, when I assumed the position for Weekend World News anchor on Sunday nights, the last African-American woman to hold that was Carol Simpson 18 years ago. And so I did interview her for the first night that I was going to be doing the newscast. And she talked about when she was the first woman of color to ever moderate a presidential debate. And she said that she had people saying, Black people saying, come on, Carol, do it for us. And she had women saying, come on, Carol, do it for us. And she said, and somewhere in there was her own ambition, right? And but that she was really carrying all women and all Black people. She felt that she had to excel for everyone, because if she didn't achieve, then when was the next woman or person of color going to get that opportunity? And so I do feel there is a weight and a responsibility that goes along with that. I have been trying to lately, though, see it more as a gift and not as something that is a burden, right. But a gift. And again, having the faith that I'll excel and that, everyone will be the better for it. But yes, you're right. I do feel that there is a sense of, representation, for an entire people.
Right.
In terms of representation, do you run into people who just consider you not to be Black because you're not sporting the Angela Davis afro, coming in with the dashiki, the clenched fist, taking a knee? I mean,
if someone has thought that, I'm not aware of it.
Interesting.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, Rabbi.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sorry. I was just wondering, first of all, it makes me very nervous when I see Vincent so calm and collected and behaved when we have a guest. It really makes me wonder, if it becomes less about the guest and more about Vincent.
Rabbi, remember the threat I made before the show?
Are you thinking about muting me? Because go ahead, because it only gets worse from here. Really, go right ahead. Vincent, if you feel that the need for that, you go, brother.
Okay, so your question.
Oh, you want me to ask a question? Okay, so here's the thing. I've noticed recently that there's been a controversy. I think it's a controversy, but I'm not 100% sure. A number of Dr. Seuss books were removed from collections, be they in schools or perhaps even some library collections. I personally was raised on Dr. Seuss. I loved him, and of course, as someone who's not immediately affected by some of his caricatures, I was not only not affected, I didn't even notice some of the caricatures that he wrote into some of his books. I think there's 6 perhaps that are of question. And when shown those things on the news, I realized, oh my gosh, that is, especially as caricatures of Asian Americans or Asians in general. And I thought, oh, that's my Dr. Seuss. I was just actually shocked that I never noticed. I wasn't sensitive enough. And I was wondering if you could comment about that a little bit, especially since you're writing also children's books for now in this time period.
I think that there's just been so much that, because as you said, that you just didn't notice. And I think that until May 25th of 2020, that fateful day of, really 2 videos that went viral on May 25th, not only George Floyd, but also that incident in Central Park with Amy Cooper, the woman that called the police on the black male bird watcher. I think that on that day or subsequent to that, once people are able to see the video, I think there became this, people talk about the idea of being woke, right? But I think that if you really look at the idea of what that terminology means and this awareness and being awake and exposed and alert and having our eyes open to really paying attention to what might be sensitivities within society. I think that a lot of times people just let things slide, right? And maybe there were times before where people said, oh, well, I guess it's just not being PC, right? I think that something changed in the aftermath of, the death of George Floyd so publicly in such a brutal way that it made everybody re-examine and question everything, right? And, history will decide where there was overcorrection, perhaps, or when it was just overdue, justice or.
Well, likewise, I'm surprised. I'm sorry to cut in, but I'm surprised that, Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn in their caricatures of certain African-American characters by Mark Twain, Sam Clemens, with that representation, how come that hasn't been removed? What makes one great literature and one removed, one canceled?
I think that we're still grappling. I think that the society is still trying to fix or figure out where do you decide, the line. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation about, Gone with the Wind or, and the antebellum kind of movies and all of that. Do you now just put context? Do you put like some text, some writing before the movie starts to say, hey, this was in this bygone era when this was acceptable and this, we no longer feel this way, whatever the case may be. People are, I think, still trying to figure out where to draw the line. And, that's a pay grade that's higher than me, because I think that you're right. There are people who haven't been canceled who maybe should be, and there are some people who have been canceled who maybe shouldn't have been. And I think that we're still trying to figure out that. And there is a lot of gray, certainly.
Let's look at Draw the Line. I mean, you report some of the greatest evils in mankind.
I'm sorry, my little boy just came in. I got distracted for a second. What was the question? I apologize.
No, we were talking about drawing the line. And in your position, you report and look at some of the greatest evils of man being inhumane to another man. Does that lead you to extra prayer, meditation, loving the dog more. I mean, because your books are actually gearing children to be prepared to change the world, to take on those responsibilities. Where does that strength come from?
Well, I would say actually one of the stories that I covered that was the most difficult, that really did weigh me down, was the earthquake in Haiti several years back. And that was the first time I saw, just death. People talk about in books and everything prior to this, like that death has a certain smell. I had never smelled death until I went to Haiti in the aftermath of that earthquake and saw some cases a week after the actual earthquake, still dead bodies in the street that they couldn't get to. And I remember I interviewed one woman who the translation in English would be, I am my family now. And she, people in America will often talk about like, oh, I lost everything, but that might be, finances, or that might be our house, or that might be a family member, whatever. But she had lost it all. She had lost her job, and she'd lost her church, and she'd lost her whole family, and she'd lost her house. And it was like everything. And just the magnitude of it all really was that, to this day, still I can feel how heavy I was, and really had to kind of recalibrate once I got back to the United States. But I think just as with anything else, when you're doing something with some regularity, then you do kind of figure out how to process and decompress. And I run a lot, so I guess that's one way that I kind of try to balance mental and physical health.
Well, the highlight of my year is when your mother asked me to teach her Sunday school class in African American spiritual history.
I can imagine that.
Oh, it's such an honor. Oh, by the way, and that's me saying that her mother is the Sunday school superintendent at our church.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
By the way, I will never, ever, ever rest until I beat your dad in our church volleyball game.
Oh my goodness. Guys, I'm gonna have to sign off only because I got my appointment for right now. So I'm gonna have
we're ready to go. We're ready to take the break right now. Linsey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you all. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Nice.
Give us some information so we can post where people can buy your books.
Sure, wherever books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or your local bookstore.
And they're on the New York Times bestsellers list, ladies and gentlemen. So go buy the books. Linsey, I love you.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Take care.
That was Linsey Davis, anchor of ABC News Weekend. And now we're going to take a much needed break because our producers are yelling commercial. We'll be back. 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
To small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you gonna find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. May be able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
go back to what you gotta say. So you guys caught a little bit of our commercial show in which we kind of have a little fun. Now, let's look at the new trial of the century, the Derek Chauvin trial. Now, please, if you ever want to piss me off, say the George Floyd trial. That's what we've been experiencing. Mr. Floyd is not on trial. His killer or his accused murderer, Derek Chauvin, is on trial. And if you've been following it like we have, it has been a very emotional, heavy trial.
Yeah. So I'm going to say that you're right. It is the Derek Chauvin trial. And he, in fact, is the one on trial. But there are a large group of people who have decided to put George Floyd on trial. And so that is the battle.
Well, the battle is, I mean, that's a defense attorney strategy. If you don't have the facts, argue the emotion. If you don't have emotion, then shame or blame the victim.
Yeah. But beside the battle that's going on between the prosecutor and the defense attorney, I'm saying Americans. You know, I'm in a lot of the feeds where the trial is being broadcast live, and you can see a divide, a clear divide, where Americans, you know, some are, you know, see it one way and the others see it the other way in terms of who's on trial, whose credibility is on trial.
I think it's bringing a lot of trauma back to a lot of people. I mean, to have to keep rewatching that video, to keep reliving what it means to be a Black man in America, to keep reliving having to choose between blue lives and Black lives. It's just so traumatic, and it's just re-traumatizing and re-traumatizing. And it's just, I don't watch it just because the semantics of it, and then the pageantry of it, and then trying to make it seem like the victims are the actual victors. It just gets so discombobulated that you lose sight of what this really is about.
Hey, Dr. Lang, can I ask you a question? So,
Certainly.
because we talked about this too, the trauma, right? When I watched day 2, there were young people on who were minors when it occurred, right? And they broke down, both of them broke down. And all I could think about was the trauma, not just of those two, but of that entire community, right? And so when we talk about socially transmitted diseases, there has to be an intervention to deal with that trauma.
Absolutely, I agree. I think it's strategic. It's strategic because that reinforces for the white people who think it wasn't wrong, it reinforces we're right. And then for the brown people or marginalized people, the other who feels like that could have been me, that could have been my son, that could have been my daughter, that could be our fate, then they have to figure out where to put it. And so for a lot of us, we don't know where to put it because you have to go alone to get alone. So now that you're woke, what do you do with that? Because you still could get pulled over by the cops. That still could be you because they're justifying it. I think it's called qualitative immunity. Like what is that?
Yeah.
And then so you got trauma on top of trauma. And if you don't know what to do with the first trauma, but we don't give each other or ourselves permission to grieve the loss of anything. We just kind of suck it up buttercup. And
but
then
when you had the mass murders, right? So whether it was Columbine, the different ones, they immediately sent in to those schools. They sent counselors to those schools to deal with those children, right?
Exactly.
And I'm saying to myself, you know, when I look at, and I don't want to just make this about Biden, right? But when I look at how they're focused on what's happening with the Asian community right now, right? I hope they resolve that. But where is there this look to say, yo, we need to send crises managers into these communities
right.
to
I
deal
think the
with
problem
these people?
I think the problem is that it's become normalized. This country has normalized marginalizing Black people. It has normalized the trauma that comes with. They don't really consider that us watching a man get killed in front of us takes us right back to slavery when they used to beat the mess out of us. Like there's no association because then that forces them to have to say, I'm doing wrong.
Here is what we're looking at. Qualitative immunity is actually the legal term of saying that the ends justify the means. So no matter what wrong or laws that the police broke, that does not qualify. It's the ends in apprehending or exacting a criminal. Henceforth, where you see officers using drugs to apprehend drug dealers.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're looking at, and you're right, we have over 400 years been so desensitized of being marginalized that this period of awakening of Black Lives Matter. And not only has George Floyd's videotape traumatized that town, it has traumatized the world. We're talking about all around the world, people who don't seem to get the huge gist of it, come to the understanding that yes, Black Lives Matter.
But you know, on top of that, I have to say that if you ever watched the show, The Passion of Christ, right? When they created that movie, The Passion of Christ, that was designed to help people realize, as we're in this Easter season, to help people realize what Jesus has done. If you keep watching that movie and watching that movie, you will become desensitized to the impact that it should have had originally. So for some people, if they keep playing a movie and playing a movie and playing this tape of George Floyd, then they become desensitized and he becomes just another guy. So it can have a negative effect, and people just be like, oh, I saw that. But when you first saw it, it was gut wrenching. But now you've seen it 100 times, you're like, oh, okay, it's like a video game.
But this is where I think that the faith-based community, right, the Black pastors and imams and such have to take the bull by the horns, right, and have to lurch into the community, understanding this trauma that is happening right now, and open their doors and say, you know, we're going to be a part of helping the community heal. We're going to be proactive in doing that. And then I think beyond that, within the schools, I think that particularly Black educators during that time need to peel off some of the academic time, because you're dealing with these people now who you want to just open up a book and read and learn without understanding the things that are going. Don't mute me, Vincent. The things that
it's about to happen.
Understand.
25 words.
Well, you know, Eric, I think you're right.
Dr. Lang, I hate to interrupt, but Iman has been so patient.
Go ahead, Iman.
Okay.
I threw him a softball when I said faith-based community needs to lurch in.
That was a good one. No, but I'll try to be brief. But basically, look, I have not been able to just sit down and watch it, nor do I want to continuously. But it still bothers me when I hear the testimony, when I see the videotape. But I thank God that it bothers me, because it shows that perhaps I still have my humanity. Yeah. And I think that other people have to use that gauge as well. And I'll cut it short, but I do want to get an opportunity to express of the anger, of feeling angry as well, and why. So.
Dr. Lang?
I agree, Rabbi. I mean, I think that, Imam, that there is a sense of anger that comes, because to me, it's just a disgusting disgrace to say that because this happened, they fear for their lives. I just can't wrap my head around it, and I just can't watch it.
Can I just lean in a little bit and just say that, you know, a few years ago when my two boys were younger, I walked in the room one time, the television room, and they were watching a Holocaust movie, and it had little children that were being rounded up with their hands up, and then a friend of mine subsequent to that wrote a book about how normal Germans, just average everyday Germans, not necessarily Nazis, all participated in this because it was normalized, and it was normal for Jews to be a virus and to stamp out that virus. It was normalized to put them in ovens and burn them. And I walked into that show. Subsequent to that, I couldn't watch it. The trauma was so powerful. And yet the other evening, I was watching this Chauvin trial, and I saw one of the African-American witnesses break down. And I knew immediately what he was experiencing to the extent that I could. I couldn't watch it anymore. And we've become, I don't think we were unsensitized. I'm overly sensitized, and I think it's time we had that conversation in America of what it means to be Black and to be at risk and to be mistreated, and it shouldn't be automatic police procedure. Screw that. You got to stop. You know,
Eric, I will say to your point, Eric, about the faith community stepping up. I think there's a challenge with that because there's so many things that they need to be talking about with coronavirus and so many people dying and then being socially isolated and suicidal ideation and depression. It just adds another thing to the list of all the other stuff. And then pastors are exhausted. They're burnt out.
No,
rabbis are exhausted. Imams are exhausted.
If you remember,
I don't disagree with you there, but I think that we have to identify where the leadership is.
Yeah.
Right. The leadership needs to lead from the front, and we need to have a clear sense of these things that are killing our community, physically and spiritually, right? And we need to deal with them head on.
Rabbi?
Yeah, I was going to say that, if you go back into the biblical tradition, the Israelites, when they find out they're going to be free, they're like, wait a minute. Moses and Aaron say, we're going to go. And they're going to like, what are you talking about? It's slavery. It's not that bad. So there's a certain acceptance. We have to break out of that acceptance. We have to say, no, this is not right. We have to open our own eyes. I guess that's internal woke. I don't need other people to be woke. I need me and you to be woke.
The challenge with that, Rabbi, is once you get woke, what do you do? Because I think about as a pastor, right? And I'm saying, come on in. Let's suppose I use Eric and I say, come on in. We're going to have a support group. We're going to talk about it. Get your feelings out. And then what is the solution, though? Because you're still going back out to deal with the same stuff.
Leaning into what Eric said about, throwing the softball to the.
Okay, what were you saying, Dr. Lang?
I'm saying that you open this Pandora's box of emotion, and then what do you do with it once you have it? Because you have a lot of pastors, imams, rabbis who are not trained clinically. When you open Pandora's box, what do you do if there's some mental health issues? There's some clinical stuff you can't deal with. And so that there's a challenge because you don't have everybody who is trained to be able to manage that. And you have so many different narratives. Everybody's not on the same page.
The one thing I think everyone needs to do is we need to go to the fourth estate. We need to go to the press, the media, and we have to say, this is an issue for us. That's the first thing you got to do. Not enough people know about this. You and I are talking right now about something that's very apparent to us. Well, guess what's not apparent to the rest of America? What's not apparent is what I call the clan redux.
Hey, ma'am, Rabbi, you know why it's apparent to them? They know. Look at the National Guards men and women that are in Minneapolis right now.
Oh, yeah. They
and
know.
Why are they there? Because they know.
They know.
They understand what's going on. They understand the hurt and the anger and the frustration and everything. And they're waiting. So they could have preempted all of this by dealing through policy with all of this, but they haven't. And so now it is once again about to boil over like it did in Ferguson and like it has done. And so they know.
And here's what the disgrace is.
It needs
so
to be
you got National Guard for a trial, but you don't have National Guard for an insurrection. That is a travesty.
Yeah.
They know.
It's crazy. And I think that it really should really upset people. It really should upset people. But unfortunately, it's too many that they're not upset. And also, too, I think it was Eric that pointed out, I'm not sure, that these two opposing viewpoints. And then it seems as though almost every time that there's a trial, especially when it deals with minorities, that they paint a picture, like they're trying to paint a picture of George Floyd and also the bystanders, that they were an angry mob. And we can clearly see that wasn't the case.
Yeah, all five of them an angry mob.
Right.
Who you fooling? Right. We already know it's victim shaming and victim blaming. It's the same thing that's been going on. It's part of that qualified immunity. They can say anything they want to justify the bullcrap. Yeah. And you're right, Dr. Lang. Our clergy are burnt.
Yeah. But can I just ask a question?
Whoa. We went through what in the last year and a half? Huh? We got COVID. We've got lying about COVID. We've got saying that COVID is going away. We've got people who already got money.
25 words.
Money. We've got people who don't have any money.
Where's the mute button?
Money. Now.
How long, oh Lord? How long?
People being killed by cops. People are justifying the dying and killing. And now one man died who did absolutely nothing for the cause of his death. Yes, they do understand that. And this is what they understand. They cannot control your anger, but they darn sure is going to control your rage.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
so wait, can I just ask you a question? So to Dr. Lang, where do we go from here? In other words, if you're telling me, look, or if Eric is telling me, look, they know. All right, I didn't think I knew. I'm like, wow. But let's say I didn't know. Eric, let's humor me for a moment.
Mhm.
And I switch over to Dr. Lang and I say, Dr. Lang, if I can't go and make this an issue in town halls, in front of the press or the media or whatever, if I can't do that, which is my natural inclination, what can I do?
It's going to have to be a grassroots effort, the
Oh,
same
yeah,
way
yeah.
that they changed Georgia over to the Democratic side. It's got to be a grassroots effort. You know, parenting starts at home, and the travesty is that we've allowed video games and all kinds of foolishness, TV, internet, cell phones to raise our kids, and now they don't know anything. So it's got to go back to in the home. What are they learning? What
So
are they
that
seeing?
sounds to me, Dr. Lang, that sounds to me like the long game. And it is the long game. What you just said is the long game. I'm a little concerned about the next, I don't know, 4-8 years. I'm a little concerned.
There's always going to be another narrative.
Okay, wait, let me just ask this question. If I don't want to wait for the long game, because I don't want to, I'd like to do something now. Can you, Dr. Lang, give me anything about what we, the 5 of us, can do now?
We can talk to, you know, we have an ally. I mean, we just talked to Linsey.
Right.
I mean, so we could work together, collaborate to put together some sort of, just the same way they have Soul of a Nation or something like that, put together a dialogue and have some real honest conversation about what's going on.
Well, you know,
have to use that.
I was looking at Stacy, not Linsey. I was looking at Stacy down in Georgia.
Okay, now what I've been trying to let you guys know that little screeching, screaming thing that's going on is the producer letting us know that we have to take care of some housekeeping. So we're going to dive back into where do we go from here? What do we do now in the midst of right now experiencing or re-experiencing the trauma of the Derek Chauvin case? And we're going to do that. 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Working to encourage young men and develop leaders. You focus on really developing future leaders and on mentoring as a big component of your work.
Yes, we believe in mentoring, and we believe in helping young people become real strong role models in the community. So in order to do that, we have what we call 5 pillars.
As an organization, as membership yourself, you are also looking to be those mentors, to be those role models for young people, for tomorrow's leaders.
Yes, actually the motto for our organization is what they see is what they'll be.
In that, you are looking for additional membership, but you're also looking for students to be a part of your organization.
Yes, I think that we're the best kept secret in town. I think that if we had more students, we could service more students. We're also looking for men to step up and be role models and mentors. Inside the program, we provide a mentoring program, a mentor training program, so the men will know how sometimes men want to do the right thing and mentor, but they don't know how. So we have a mentor program to teach them how to do it.
Hey guys, welcome back to What You Gotta Say. We're here with Dr. Lang, Bishop Rabbi Frisch, and Imam Bashir, and my co-host Vincent Squire. We're talking about the COVID trial and the level of intensity that is starting to build right within this nation. And so we're back to talk about that.
To answer your question, Rabbi, you said, what do we do? First, and first, it starts with what we're doing right now. Let's give some honest, gut-wrenching, honest belief, understanding, and opinions of the injustices that we're experiencing. The second thing, as Dr. Lang says, parenting starts at home. We have a circle of influence of people in our church, people in our neighborhood, people that we associate with. And in that circle of influence, we have to start confirming the truth. We cannot sit up here and constantly be lulled into a false sense of societal norms anymore. We cannot consistently sit there and go through the same BS. It is time now to stand up and speak out. It's not looking for one person to save us. The people who are to save us are ourselves.
All right. So we have 25 minutes. We have 25 words. But here's what I'm going to say to you, Vincent. Like, if we're going to be honest, and like brutally honest, right?
I didn't say brutally. I just said honest.
No, but we have to be brutally honest. So we don't control anything. So even to the degree that we had Linsey on earlier, though I'm grateful that she has an anchor job, I don't control that network. So we all know, if we're brutally honest, there are things she cannot do. Words she will never be able to utter if she's going to maintain that. And so those people who sit above her, right, we know that. So if we're brutally honest, we got to say that we got somebody there, but she can't really do what we need her to do.
Okay.
But we also need to be able to address, we need to be able to address the various levels of development. You have the individual. So yes, we need to do more in terms of getting ourselves together. We need to address the family issues, but we also need to address the community issues, but also do not sleep on the power of local unity, local government, because that's where a lot of the things have to take place. And then also to the religious leaders. I think a lot of them are doing this, but we have to have enough courage to speak truth to power and call it what it is: racism. That we just have to be honest with that and let the people know.
If we're going to be brutally honest, the truth is that racism and evil is built into the fabric of this country. That's what it was founded on, us versus them. And as long as there's an us-them dichotomy, there's always going to be a narrative that says evil is justified. What happened to George Floyd is evil. How they're trying to spin it with Chauvin is evil. And as long as people justify evil and try to lull us to sleep with, that's just how it is, it's always going to be a problem.
But now, that's what I meant by courage. What you just said is what needs to be said. But you know what? You'll have certain segments of our own community.
That's
be
right.
Careful. Watch what you say.
I refer to them as the Negro whisperers.
The heck with all of that, man. Let's go out there and do what we got to do. Say what we got to do.
Yeah. But the narrative is that if brown people get together, we're going to have an insurrection. But the truth of it is, I saw a picture of the Million Man March. Nobody went over to the Capitol and raided it.
That's right.
But then you look at the other narrative and it's like, oh my goodness, white people can get together and they can cause chaos, but it's okay because they love America. You got 5 black dudes standing in front of the Capitol. Now you got the National Guard.
Yep.
So here's the question. Why do you believe, as successful as the Million Man March was, in all respects, right? Bringing all of those people together, having it be a peaceful event, why hasn't there been enough?
Why hasn't there
been? Because you have too many narratives.
Why hasn't
too many narratives?
No, what there has been is too many narratives and too little hands doing the work. We've got too many issues and too many people sitting up there, sitting on their behind, talking about Linsey, save me. No, get off your behind and save yourself.
I think it's really about fear, though.
I think it's really what does that mean? Fear. Could you just explain to me? Because I'm John Q. Public here. All right. Here I am. I'm Opie, and I'm asking you right now. what does too many narratives mean? What does that mean?
Too many narratives is, if you
mean-
look at how Black Lives Matter movement is, right? There is not one person who is the leader, and that is intentional and it's strategic. And you don't know who the leader is because just like with Dr. King, just like with Malcolm X, they will be killed. So you have to look at strategically how powerful Black people are, but the narrative is that we are less than. So when we come together, we could do powerful things. So there's not going to be another Million Man March. There's not going to be another Million Women March, because as long as you keep them pitted against each other, like the Willie Lynch letter, there's not going to be a general consensus.
Okay, but wait, just so I'm clear, what, again, I'm sorry, I'm not the sharpest tack in the box, but I think you know, Dr. Lang, I'm in that box. So I need to know that having too many narratives means too many leaders?
Too many people going in too many different directions. I'll go back to what I said about Cardi B, right? So Cardi B was talking to, I can't even remember her name, and she was saying how Cardi B is she's from Fox News. I can't remember her name, probably, I don't know why. But anyway.
But don't even dignify it with the name. Go with the story.
Right. So Cardi B, so she's like Cardi B, because they did this whole WAP thing for the show. And so she was like, oh, she's ruining America. So Cardi B was like, yeah, we made Fox News, blah, blah, blah. So then the girl was like, yeah, Cardi B, you ruining America. Cardi B was like, nobody cares what you think. And so then she took a picture of making a sandwich for her white husband. So Cardi B was like, so that's what you're saying? So that Black women should be subject to white men? So you have Black women against Black women. You have Black men against Black men. Who's that only senator who's Black, who's running around talking about, it's all right, we good?
Yeah.
You know, you got people like, you know, as long as you have these two narratives of it's okay, it's not okay, within the Black community, there's no consensus.
But Dr. Lang, I think to some degree we're always going to have that, and we have to learn how to maneuver and get to where we need to go.
Well, you had it during Dr. King.
But also one of the
we
things
didn't.
too-
Dr. King even talked about how so little people did so much and how marginal the victory was and how great it would have been.
Well, that's what I just said. We had the same dynamic when Dr. King was. We had these. You had.
When you had Malcolm and Dr.
You had Stokely Carmichael wanting to move in one direction. You had Jesse Jackson backbiting in some respects in another direction. Dr. King talked about the pastors in the church being more concerned about the size of their wheelbase than they were about the community. So you didn't have this harmonious thing happening then, and I don't say you have it now. And when Farrakhan had the Million Man March, you certainly didn't have harmony. You had pastors and bishops and everybody doing their own thing. You had the you had the Nation of Islam, and then you had this other group of Muslims. You had all of that, but you were able to get 1 million people into Washington and be peaceful.
Go ahead, Iman.
Because people had vision and they were able to get past some of their differences because they wanted to get to and see the big picture. And the other thing too, we have to stop allowing white people to select our leaders. I can't tell you how many times I've been in situations where white folks have denounced and tried to tell me who my Black leaders should be. And that's just the way of duping us and causing division. We choose our own leaders. I don't need you to tell me who I should follow.
But don't we do that every time when we see whether it's a Black mayor?
Okay, I've been trying this for 10 minutes now. So let's look at this, and then I'll unmute him. And let's take it from this point. Can we agree that as a group of people, as a race of people, the human race, we're not monolithic? Can we agree on that?
Yes.
We can agree on that.
Yes.
Okay.
But are you saying that unity is not possible?
See, there's the point. We're not monolithic. Now, I'm glad you agree. Now, the next thing, can we agree that one of the things that are keeping us from being monolithic and unified is because of the little tiny issues that get blown way out of proportion rather than focusing on the large issue of racism or systematic racism or institutional racism?
I don't know if I necessarily agree with tiny issues.
Okay. Well,
I don't even know what a tiny issue is.
okay. Okay. Well, issues that are personal to us, but not personal to others.
As long as there's somebody who's going to justify evil, there will never be unity. Never. Chattel slavery was evil. There's no other way you can say it. And as long as people try and sugarcoat it, that it's okay to own a person and treat them worse than you treat your animals. I mean, you got people who will go to the ends of the earth for dogs, but won't do that for Black people. That is insanity.
Yes, it is. But you know something, I think sometimes we do a disservice to ourselves by looking at the concept of unity. You will never, look at history, you'll never have 100% unity. It's just not going to happen. But do not allow that to hold us back, because yes, we do have unity. And I think that for those of us who belong to, say, interfaith groups or organizations, I think it's a good example. You have those of the Jewish faith, those who have the Christian faith, those who are of the Muslim faith, you have Hindus, etc., etc. But we all come together. Why? Because we have seen an issue that affects us as humans, right? And we come together. It doesn't mean that we agree in terms of our theology on everything, but the human aspect of it is so important.
Imam, do you mean that we have a common interest that draws us together? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yes.
Well, what happens, Imam? What happens? This is kind of what I've been harping on.
I said 2 minutes ago.
What happens? No, hold on. What happens when we don't have common interests? You know, in other words, you're talking about the Black community, the African American community, the brown and the Black community. You're talking about that, and there's I guess what you're saying is there's disunity on just so many issues, larger, small, little issues. So is there room for common interests in the African American community? I guess
okay.
that's
Now, before you address that, we're going to have to do this. Now, for those of you who are following us on CBS CW network, this is the end of our show. We invite you to see this again and see it in its entirety, because we're going into the after show, which will be on Roku and YouTube. I'm Vincent Squire on behalf of my co-host Eric Dawson, for those of you who will be cut off, and our three wise ones, Dr. Lang, Rabbi Frisch, and Imam Brashear. We like to say thanks for watching. We love you for watching, and see us next week. Okay, now it's all yours.
Oh, so I'm just saying, is there a possibility? I mean, we're never going to get, like the Imam says, we're never going to get 100%, unity. I mean, I can tell you in the Jewish community, we're as divided as ever, for sure, for sure. But there are certain things that we do come together on that are crucial to a significant core of the community, from all angles, from all movements, all different types of Jews, certain things we agree on. So you had the $1 Million Man March, but it's never been reproduced. You've all said that, which surprises me, because you have some issues that I think I'd like to be part of the next one. I'd like to be part of the Million People March, actually, that says racism, as Dr. Lang would say, that's an evil that everyone's turning a blind eye to. It needs to be on the board, it needs to be talked about, and it needs to be ended. How do we do that? Why can't that be an issue we all agree on?
I think racism is just a piece of the puzzle, because you, as a woman, you got sexism. To me, that's as important as racism. And so as a woman, there's still some stuff. As long as men can tell us what to do with our body, we have a problem.
And there you go. Again, another part that divides.
That's another narrative as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I think
but can't we get together on one, at least one for now? Can't we try?
Let me quote Rodney King. Can we all just get along?
But listen, I think that I'll use the Asian hatred that has been promoted as of late. No disrespect to my Asian brothers and sisters, but at least from my perspective, they have not been united with us. They've not been on the front lines in terms of fighting racism and looking at the problems that people of color, specifically African Americans, go through. But now, since this has happened to them, I think that now, and they're getting support, I think you will now see them, hopefully, join ranks, and it'll be a larger coalition. And I'll give you an example that just happened, not just happened, but in the Muslim community. The African American Muslims for a long time felt that and I'll use this term for lack of a better word, immigrant Muslim community not really giving us the support in terms of, fighting against racism and things of that nature. But after 9/11, when they were the brunt of a lot of the prejudice and the racism and Islamophobia, whatever, since that time, we've been together because it happened to them.
Henceforth, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly.
And I've got to say this, I've been to some Black Lives Matter rallies, and I've seen a great deal of support from white, Asian, Hispanic, and all of them. I see this as a period of everybody coming together. Now, it doesn't matter to me, because if Eric was here, he'd say, well, that's out of white fragility. It doesn't matter to me what is motivating them to get there. What matters to me that they showed up.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
this kind of debate, but does this not go to my question? Can we not agree on certain issues that have triage value here? Dr. Lang, I am more than willing to work on other narratives. I am. I've got enough of me to share with many narratives. But one of the things that I see permeating cross-narrative wise is, and I'm sorry about sexism, and I'm sorry, there's a host of things I'm sorry about, but racism, people of color racism, it's overwhelming to me right now. It's triage-ic. It's tragic, triage-ic. And I think this is something that it demands our attention immediately. I mean, look at the Chauvin trial. It demands our attention. The man breaks down, not a child, the man breaks down on the stand. You saw that. He could not get himself collected. He was re-traumatizing. To me, he is the example of what I'd like America to see, because America, wider America, is not re-traumatizing. Wider America is accepting.
Oh, yeah.
Let me quote Jack Nicholson, and maybe this will give you some clarity in your question, Rabbi. In terms of a lot of people, white and Black America, when they see the videotape, you know what happens?
I turn away.
True.
What's that? I'm sorry.
They can't handle the truth.
Oh,
they can't handle the truth.
He said they can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the simple fact that your great-great-great-great-grandfather owned somebody else's great-great-great-great-grandfather.
It don't even go that far back, though, Vincent. You got to consider it don't go that far back.
Well, you can see it.
You can't handle the truth that you got this great job living in the suburbs over another man of a different color who's more qualified. You can't handle the truth that you sit up here and made progress and growth in terms of your property and your financial and generational wealth off of the backbone of somebody that someone has oppressed to make it happen for you.
Yeah, they fool themselves. Many, I would say, fool themselves even with what's going down in Georgia and throughout the country with the voting rights issues. They fool themselves with that. It's just plain racism. It's Jim Crow.
They justify.
By the way, I'm not sure they're fooling themselves. I think they actually know what they're doing there.
Well, you're right. You're right.
They know what they're doing. That is intentional.
Yeah, exactly.
I just see that as Klan redux. If the Klan was called out to keep Black people from organizing and voting, and I think historically that's accurate, then I see this as the exact same thing. It's Klan redux, it's Klan 2, Klan new chapter, Klan whatever. And that to me, if I look to someone like Stacey Abrams, that's what we need to, that's where the conversation needs to go. Someone needs, like Harriet Tubman said, follow the star. All right. So that's what I'm saying about Stacey and other people like her. Follow the star. That's where it needs to go, because the Klan is accepted. Voter suppression is accepted. We need to unaccept it.
Rabbi, in terms of the imperialistic society in America, okay, they always use their lower class people to protect their interests, called the Ku Klux Klan. Why do you think that everybody's asking Stacey, is she going to run again? And she says nothing.
Nothing. She's protecting her life.
Thank you.
She's protecting her life and her family.
Interesting.
But
there's got to be other Stacys. And Dr. Lang, you said we got to start raising them now. And I called that the long game. So I'm going to retrench. I'm going to pull myself back here. And I'm going to open myself up to your view. We need to now raise more Stacys.
Okay, but can we fight? Can we walk and chew gum at the same time?
I don't know.
Can we existingly raise more Stacys while we get other people to speak truth to power? Can we ensure our children and our grandchildren and enforce into them that race or the color of their skin is not what they should be judged by, but the character of their color? While at the same point, we and those who are able and eligible can now raise their voices to change legislation that protects that action. Can we now have a person in office who's willing to speak truth to power and then have another group to protect them because of these little internet trolls?
Okay, all right, okay.
But we can't send our children out with rose-colored glasses. It's unfair to them to say you should not be judged by the content of your character without saying, however, you are. You still have to have that conversation with your Black son that if you get pulled over, put your hands on the wheel. You still have to have that conversation when you're out at night and there's something going on. You're going to be the one that they're going to look at. Those things are still true. So we have to find a way to balance what should be and what really is.
Well, we know what the world is today, and we want to prepare our children to make a better world tomorrow. I mean, isn't that the goal? Yes, I'm going to, as he says, and as the Bible says in the text, be as harmless as a dove, but wise as a serpent.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Imam.
I was just say, hopefully, and I see a lot of the young people really getting involved, and that's very inspiring. I can tell you this, is that we definitely need more people to get into this fight. Personally, even with myself, sometimes I feel like a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I think that sometimes that's why we don't progress as quickly and as powerful as we should, because you might have one of our leaders and he has his hands in this issue, in that issue, in that issue, in this issue. So if we had more people to kind of focus in on a particular issue and really work on it, then it leaves the other person free to work on a different issue. But and hopefully I think that will come. We do have a lot of young people working.
As society, when we have that one person who is working on issues, part of the of not being monolithic is that somebody will approach him and say, I need you and your attention and your abilities to come over here and to help me with my issue.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to, just a little historical context here. I've lived long enough to say this, but in 1964, you had two Jewish guys and an African American. They go down to Mississippi and they're working on organizing people, get out the vote, so on and so forth. 1964. Here we are in 2021. They paid for it with their lives. Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner. They paid for it with their lives. A couple of Jews and a black guy, just like now in Georgia, a Jewish guy and a black guy. And I'm scared, Dr. Lang, for their lives.
Oh, yeah.
I am scared for their lives like I would have been in 1964. I remember it from my own memory. I do. And the civil rights movement and the rights of all of us movement and the pushing back of the Klan movement, which we've got to do it every waking day. Speaking of woke, every waking day. It's a dangerous thing. People lose their lives, ladies and gentlemen. We're not talking about, unicorns and cotton candy and this world of, Dr. Seuss, if you will. We're talking about a world that is prickly and, let me take Hobbes, nasty, brutish, and short. And that's what we're talking about. And it's going to come with sacrifice. That's the only way to say it.
If a man is not willing to stand for what he wants, he doesn't deserve it.
Yes.
Bottom line, you're going to have to take a stand. You are going to have to fight. And everybody knows, everybody who is military trained knows that if you're in a fight, you stand the chance of losing your life. But I would rather die standing up than to die on my knees.
That's right.
I'd rather give my life to make it better for others than to sit up here and cower down with the same things that they've been going through. That was the motto and the mindset of the 60s. They were tired of being gentle lambs, yet still being slaughtered. It was time to take a stand. Part of this awakening is not the older people who were in that fight back there coming back. It's the younger people saying,
Yes.
"What are y'all taking this?"
Right. Well, that speaks to what Dr. Lang said, to start raising that next generation now.
Yeah,
But,
I see it coming. I'm really inspired by a lot of the young people. I really am.
Really? I want to be there with you, Imam. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I do. I see. I mean, listen, I'm not saying it's perfect. And I'm not saying that there's not issues there. But at the same time, too, I am inspired by the amount of young people who are engaged and who want to do something and who are not afraid.
Here you go.
Do we need leadership that maybe I can't see? Maybe I'm not seeing it.
We have leadership that you can't see. That's the whole issue. We have been making some changes. We have been moving the needle. The problem that we endure or go through is that when we move the needle, we go through two things. One, pushback. And two, when we do move the needle, we don't get a lot of coverage to spread that around or that information around. That was one of the beauty things of Stacey Abrams, that grassroots of fair fight. That was one of the beauties of Dr. King, the grassroots of everybody meeting at different locations with the exact same time and date to make the movement happen. That was the beauty of it. We were there. The leadership is there. What everybody knows that we said earlier is that as soon as somebody steps up as the poster child to unite everyone, they kill them.
Well, I kind of look back in the Bible a little bit to the 12 scouts that they send into the land of Israel. They're in the desert. And those 12 scouts, they go there and they come back and they're supposed to say, "Hey, it's great. Let's go there. Promised land. We've gone over there. Promised land." And then so everyone says, "Oh, how was it?" And they're like, 10 of the 12 say, "No, don't go. Let's don't do that. It's too risky. Those people are giants over there. They'll consume us." And two of them, Joshua and Caleb, said, "Wait a minute, it's fun. What are you talking about? Let's go." And they didn't listen. They didn't listen to the two. They listened to the 10, and they wound up staying for an entire generation in the desert.
Well, no, that was like the 10 of them saying, because Joshua and Caleb brought back proof, this really large fruit, and said, "No, this surely is the place of milk and honey." So the 10 said, "Who are you going to believe? Us or you're lying on us?"
Right. Well, it reminds me of the people that whisper that the imam brought up, say, "Don't do that. Behave yourselves." We have that imam in our various religions of Judaism.
Yep.
We have the same thing. Don't do that. Don't push. You never know what will happen. It might explode like a raisin in the sun. You never know what's going to happen, right? But guess what? Guess what? They paid the price. They stayed in the desert. They were raised in the desert. They were raised for the next job. But we've seen some generations come and go, Dr. Lang, and I don't see Joshua and Caleb anymore. I haven't seen them in a while.
Whoa, Rabbi, this is what I love about the Black Lives Movement. They're Joshua and Caleb. And here's the thing. Everybody that's following them, they are not listening to the conventional wisdom of old.
That's right.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
Are you
Listen, my distinguished colleagues, I have to go.
So do I.
This is a good conversation, lively, is very emotional as well. And
we're going to end the after show anyway.
I'm just confused. I leave confused. I don't see what you see.
Well, I'll help you out, okay?
I know you're trying to help me out, Vincent, but I'm not sure you're as sharp as the Imam or Dr. Lang. You got to get sharper.
Oh, well, look, I can get you the
You
application.
got to get sharper, young man.
Okay. All right. On that, I have to bow out.
All right.
May
And by the way,
God's peace be upon
Imam,
all
I
of
like
you.
how your vest matches your
Oh,
head covering. It's
Thank
nice.
you very much. I like the way your yarmulke matches
Matches my sweater vest. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Hey,
All right, we
Vincent,
all
this
learn
has
from
been-
each other.
This has been good. It's been real. But God willing, we'll get there, man. You know, we're gonna keep pushing forward.
Well, you know what I always say, Imam? How long, oh Lord? How
Imam,
long?
why don't you close us out? Why don't you end the show for us and we can get going?
Imam, go ahead.
Oh, well, you know, we say that things are physical, mental, and spiritual, and we have to address all of those things. And I think that a lot of the comments and opinions and thoughts that came out today, they actually do address all of those issues. So we're doing a lot, but we need to do a lot more. And also too, just keep faith.